Good afternoon, everyone. So, I hope everyone who has joined us are able to hear us and also see the presentation which has been presented. So, we will start this session now. And thank you, everyone, for joining this Friday afternoon session, which we conduct regularly from Desapex. So this is our initiative to share whatever the lessons we learned during our consulting practice at Desapex, and also uh, 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 understand the perspective from uh, from the from the global market. How do we implement BIM at various stages of the uh, project? So without taking much time now, I will straightforward deep dive into the presentation. Uh, so, be- so this is the usual poll we do to understand the type of audience which we have. Subramania, if you can just start the poll to understand the background of the people who have joined this webinar today. So I think most of them are from management leadership role, which is actually the targeted audience for this webinar today. And the agenda for this webinar will be first we will talk about why this topic is relevant to the current market situation, and also briefly touch base about an introduction to Desapex and what we do at Desapex, aligned to the webinar agenda. So the type of services which we provide, and also information gathering, how we have to do before any BIM scoping document, and then use cases, understanding the responsibility matrix, and really taking BIM to a construction site, and tools and technologies, and uh, ISO frameworks which are available, and also the best practices for creating a scoping document. So we will be all talking about that. So today's uh, relevance, why this webinar today, and why we should be talking about this topic, is that BIM has become very much part of most of the capital projects today, but there are really very few projects which get fully benefited. If you take a typical BIM project, it start from design, from construction stage, or even early in the briefing stage, and then it spread across overall operation and maintenance cycle as well. But what we are seeing is that even though it has become an integral part now, but so many projects are struggling to get fully benefited from the information which we create during the life cycle of a project. And then property owners, the developers or property occupiers, or the people who own the property, so more and more they were wanting to get into the digitalization. So there are all these buzzwords which are coming in market, like digital twin, 4D, 5D, etc. So the people are talking about lot of these acronyms or jargons, and people, property owners want more from digitalization. So it is so what has happened is that there is a realization which is coming at a property owner level, that using this information, using these digital models, yes, we can achieve more than just design coordination or clash detection, quantities or drawing production, which was common things even 10 years back or 15 years back, people used it. But now I think people are educated more in to use this model for the next stages of information delivery. And then most of these BIM scope documents which are coming into the market, either from the project management companies or from contractors or from owners directly, so they are not elaborated enough, and sometimes it starts uh, confusion. So um, what we are seeing is, because of this there is a lot of expectation imbalance which happens, and within the stakeholders. And most of the time when we reach, when we start using this kind of scope documents, we reach to a certain stage in project, and then we start thinking that if we don't have this covered within the BIM frameworks, and then what is the need of BIM? So we all go to that stage saying that if this is not there, then it is of no use to me. So most of the time, these scope documents does not uh, cover every aspect which are required by the stakeholders of construction project sometimes. And also because of the copy pasting thing which happens from project to project, from organization to organization, from one contract document to another contract document. So most of the time the information delivery does not happen correctly. And as usual, the terminologies like LOD 300, kobe, these are all the terminologies where there is a well accepted process documentation within the organization. And also, as a contractual obligation, there are standard contract documents which state this. But today, unfortunately, we are using these terminologies without a scope which elaborates these terminologies. We take up somewhere a terminology which is used in US or in Europe, and then we try to put it those terminologies within our scope of work and expect that this is what it is written there, without having those I mean description of what is required at the end of the project or during the construction stage for a particular project. So these are all these type of confusions which are actually happening in the market. And exactly today's webinar is will be focusing on this. So it is not more on technology, that you have to use this technology or that technology, or we have this or we don't have this. So today we will be more talking about philosophy, or how this process with respect to BIM have to be adapted so that everyone can get benefited, and what are all the common pitfalls. So today everyone can talk about how the project can be done well. So when you have a initial briefing of the project, so everyone talks about yes, if we have BIM, this is how fantastically we can get quantities or we can get drawings. But most of the time people don't talk about what are the pitfalls and how it can go wrong. So I think today we'll also touch base upon, if we don't have this kind of processes, what are all the common pitfalls which can be faced by the project. Again, I see there are a lot of global audiences coming and joining us, but this will be a specific learning from our exposure in Indian market, and also some of the global projects which we are doing in. But again, I think this will be relevant for everyone. So there might be some specific things which might not be relevant, but I think at a larger extent, so this is what is happening not only in Indian market but also globally. So there are a few common biases which we need to understand moving forward. So there are a lot of project level biases or individual biases which we have to overcome this problem. So this the failure of implementation of any digitalization process in a construction project. So uh, all or nothing mindset should be avoided. So And also I think we should aim for incremental improvement during the process. So most of the time in any digital project implementation, so we start thinking that if this is not there in the project, then it's not nothing for me. So I think that all or nothing mindset should be avoided. So if a client or a property owner is uh, actually aiming to implement BIM or any sort of digital framework, whether it is ERP system, CRM, or HRM systems, or any sort of digital implementation related to construction projects, I think all or nothing mindset should be avoided, and we should always aim for incremental improvement, and the implementation has to happen step by step basis. And again, this is a very specific bias that everything must be in house, everything must be in architects and MEP scope, or we have a BIM consultant to take care of. So most of these claims are either from the developer aspect. So people start thinking that if we have mandated, or if you have added this terminology LOD 300 in architect scope or in MEP scope, we think that everything is in their scope. So and we might be expecting something which is beyond their scope. So so whenever we are targeting for this kind of digitalization or implementing BIM in the projects, I think we should also come out of this thing that we should read it, understand from the architect's perspective, and also from MEP consultants perspective, that what is their responsibility with respect to BIM, whether it has been addressed or no. And again, this is the common topic which I was talking about, that if this is not possible, then what is the use of BIM? So I think this is the most heard argument in any project. So usually we start hearing this in the middle of the project, that we have started working on the project, and then we realize that okay, if someone needs a quantity of excavation which has to be done, and you don't have an excavation model, you don't have anything related to excavation which is scoped under your excavation contractor or your general contractor, but you are expecting something out of that process in a BIM model. So again we hit a dead end, where we start telling that if this is not possible, then what is the use of BIM? So again, people start thinking that we have invested so much on this technology, we have invested so much on this process, and if you don't get this, then what is the use of BIM? So I think we should also start thinking in a different way, rather than we expecting everything from BIM. We should also see how much have we scoped in BIM. So what is the scope which we have which we are targeting for this particular project or at an organizational level? Are we going to do everything from the model, or are we scoping only a particular part of the project or particular discipline of the project? So how are we doing it? What is the bare minimum to do BIM for this project? So I think we should also discuss about that. And then scoping, mixing 4 to 5 documents and adding everything without knowing project budget, timeline, goals, stakeholders, or stakeholders capabilities. So this is also one thing which we are seeing in the current market, that so we see the developers or the project management companies, they have all these RFPs which they have floated for different companies or different clients. They use these 2 3 4 scope documents, copy paste it, and then without knowing the project budget, I mean, when we go to the customer first time, so if you read the document, so it is worth of maybe $1 million, but when we start discussing these things in detail, so then they come to know that no, this is not required, but that might have been written in the document. Because of the lack of awareness, or because of lack of understanding of this BIM scopes which has to be delivered in the project, so we start using these 4 to 5 scope documents and add all these terminologies, and then when we come to the budget part of it or how it has to be delivered. So then we start do value engineering rather than target value design. So this always is stretches the timeline of the project or neutralizes why we are doing BIM in the project. So this is also one of the common pitfalls which happens. And then uh, people start thinking that everything is automatic in BIM. So most of the time people are thinking that if you use this one tool, so if you use this one tool, everything will be automatic. So we think that we can extract quantities, we can extract drawings, we can extract animated videos, walkthroughs, all those things. So this is again a common myth or pitfall which happens. So everything is not automatic in BIM. So BIM is not a magic wand where you have magic where everything comes out of BIM model without you doing anything or without using proper technologies. So that is not the common thing. I mean, that is not a magic wand here. And so about Desapex, so having giving this context now, so what are the common things which are happening in the market, and how things are progressing, what are the common biases. So just to brief about Desapex, we are headquartered in Bangalore, in India, and we have pan India offices which serve all the regions in India with respect to our consulting services. And we also have our European headquartered in Stockholm in Sweden, so where we offer our solutions to our European customers. So again, the main mission of our organization is to create that adoption and integration of technology for target value design. And by doing that, we believe that we will have a sustainable built environment. So we have been doing this solution architecture or providing these services at design stage, in construction stage, operation and maintenance stage, and also renovation stage. So as an organization, we have matured from all the stages of the project, whether it is design, construction, operation and maintenance stage, and renovation stage. So whatever we are discussing today in this webinar, so it will contain all the aspects of a built asset. So it is not only related to design, it is not only related to construction, but also operation and maintenance stage and the renovation stage of the project. And one more unique thing about us is that we were the first company to get ISO 19650 kite mark, which is a global standard now for BIM design and construction from BSI. So 5 of our projects were audited, and we got this kite mark in 2019 when the kite mark was recently launched. And year on year, we are able to keep up with this minimum information delivery which has to happen in the project. So instead of using a lot of jargons, or instead of using complex terminologies, what we try to do for our clients is to simplify their process rather than just using jargons. So I think this has been one good, I mean, one important thing which we tell to our clients, that you don't focus on a technology or a tool aspect, but we should focus more on the process aspect at the initial level. Yes, tools and technologies are definitely required to deliver the project, but also we should be talking about the process. So this standard actually talks about the process of implementing them rather than the tools and technologies aspect of it. So this is one thing which we wanted to make sure that which is offered to our clients as a bare minimum requirement, without they asking that you do it in ISO 19650 process or anything. So we have adapted it at a organizational level. So these are the three verticals which we have: digital design management, digital project management, digital asset management. So digital design management is where we feel that still that there is a lot of capacity requirement for model production, model class detection, coordination during the design construction stage. And so as we bridge that gap, which is actually in terms of capacity or in terms of capabilities during design stage and construction, so we need also the project management side of it, where we help our clients to create this information delivery plan, the exact thing what we discussed, what is important for this market, and how we can create this process or scope documents, how we create model auditing reports, progress monitoring, digital lab during the construction stage, and also digital asset management for operation and maintenance stage. So these are the three verticals which we are addressing here at Desapex. So, understanding the scope of webinar, I think we laid out clearly why we need this webinar and how it will help. So, adding to that, so today's, webinar will mostly help the owners, property developers, project management companies to specify BIM in their projects. So, first we need to understand how we need to specify the BIM requirements in the project, and for the people who are who are getting into this, just to give the definition or the general understanding. So building information modeling is a collaborative method of creating the or leveraging the 3D models, which are geometric embedded object properties, to various life cycle of the project or the property stages. So it is at Desapex we often tell that BIM is not a noun, but it is a verb. So it is a process of actually implementing digital fabric during design, construction, and operation maintenance of any property. So BIM is a process rather than just a tool or a technology. Yes, tools and technologies are also part of it, but it's not the only thing. So we need to understand the process as well. And then each project requirement might differ, and so the should the scope of the document. So today in this webinar, so we will also touch base upon that. Everyone might have questions here, so I see many people asking questions, so we will take these questions at the end of the session. So please feel free to type in your questions related to the webinar, so we will definitely address this. And again, why I said this particular thing is that every project requirement is different. There might be some typical aspects, but the scope of the document also should change, so as per the project requirement. So these are the three things which we will be broadly talking about in this webinar. So first thing, gathering the information for scoping. So first, uh, in any BIM project or any project where we are aiming to implement BIM, the first question we should ask is, what is the use case of BIM, or why do we need BIM for this project? So typical answers might be, we need it for clash detection, we need it for quantity takeoff, we need it for 4D or to simulate the timelines, or to do the cost analysis part of it using the 5D models, or people might just tell that we need it for operation and maintenance stage. So we don't. So from the client perspective, first we need to understand what is the use case of BIM without getting into the nth D, which we often talk about, like whether it is 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D. So we started it calling it as ND rather than terming it with a thing. Yes, for ease of understanding, we still use that, but I think we should start asking this plain language questions, which we call PLQs, to the client, that why we need to implement BIM in this project, and what is the main use case which we are targeting about, and who will develop these 3D models during design stage and construction stage. Although it might sound like a very rudimentary question that yes, consultants have to do that or contractor have to do that, most of the time this question will be actually not answered, and we will have ambiguity in the project that who will develop the design model, whether it is a sub consultant, subcontractors. If it is a general contracting methodology, so you will the subcontractors will do the model or general contractor will do the model? If the consultants are, if architect will do all the model, or MEP consultant will do only the MEP part of it. So always these are the debates which are there in the project discussions. So this has to be clarified in the scope document which we issue to the consultants or the contractors or subcontractors. So who will develop the 3D models, and who will review and approve the 3D models on behalf of the owner. So it is not only we developing the models and approving the 3D models. That process also plays a very important aspect, that once we have developed the model, who will review it, who will approve the 3D models, and how the review mechanism is set. Because traditionally people are very well versed in checking the drawings or checking Excel sheets and PDF documents. But when all of a sudden we change the process and you have this beautiful 3D models which you have to use it to review and approve, so it becomes a very difficult scenario for the consultants or for the contractors to give the approvals on this model. And how would be the 3D models used by the construction team? So this is one major aspect in the project, where okay, now we have these models. How these models will be translated into a construction ready model, and how we will use it, whether we are going to use it for 4D simulations or 5D, or who will update the model to check the constructability aspect of the models. So these are the things which we should be having the answers at a scoping level. And then how will the 3D models and other projects be stored and developed and accessed by all the stakeholders? So again, we'll touch base upon common data environment also. So this fifth point will lead to the discussion of common data environment, how these models and other project documents, whether it is your checklist, whether it is any project related documents like design brief documents, specifications, BOQs, how are those things stored and how easily those are accessible to the stakeholders? Because BIM is not just developing these beautiful 3D models. There are a lot of non-geometrical data, geometrical data from different stakeholders which comes into the place, and we should also create a conducive environment, which we call it as CDE. CDE might be a process, again it is a technology also, where we store all these files and how easy it is able accessed by different stakeholders based on their user rights, and what tools and technologies are to be used at, so to accomplish this BIM project and use cases. So I think you can see the sequence how we have structured it. The tools and technologies comes at the last part. Okay, so how we should be looking at, yes, they are very important, but I think first thing is we should have the process set, and then we will talk about what are the tools and technologies for this use case. If you are talking about a crane simulation, if you are talking about temporary work estimation which has to be happen, so which are the tools which we should use? So that is also a very important aspect which people should be talking about and scope it wisely, so that the tools which are used in design stage talks to the tools which are used in construction stage, and the tools which are used in construction stage as a handover, those tools are used talking to the tools which are used in operation and maintenance stage. So when it comes to use case, I think we should start documenting this use case in a better way. So these are the common use cases which we have seen currently, that yes, we can have a better visualization of the project. So again, this can be a high priority, this can be a medium priority, based on the complexity of the project or the type of asset. So clash detection and coordination, quantity extraction from BIM, coordinated construction drawings, sustainability management with BIM. So nowadays people are talking about, yes, so we people are targeting for ESG. So again, when it comes to ESG, so when we deploy BIM, so there is a certain sustainability aspect which can be extracted if we are conscious enough to see how the information is getting stored in the BIM model. So we can use it for initial energy analysis. We can use it for carbon footprint reporting using standard data libraries which are available now of the products. And then project planning, which we call it 4D, cost planning, which we call it 5D, and then construction progress reporting with BIM, and finally digital handover with BIM for FM team, and many more. I think this does not end here. Again, the how quickly the construction processes are evolving. I think these stages also will evolve, and the use cases will differ, and people will start exploring more. But I think the main important point here is that we should start documenting the use case for particular project. So what are we aiming for this project? It should be clear. So again, this is a standard pictorial representation. So when we are talking about asset capital delivery phase, what are all the use cases which we can target about? And then when we are talking about asset operational phase, so what are all the use cases which we can target? So, and then what are the supporting tools? Classification model has to be model has to be developed in a way that at least one type or a particular type of classification systems are used. So today, if I want to do a quantity takeoff from a model, so there should be some classification when we are developing the model. If you have not followed a certain mechanism of naming convention or certain mechanism of developing or breaking up the model as per the WBS, so then we cannot expect that the once you have the model that I can do cost modeling, or I can do a prefabricated unit using these models. So that are very much not possible if we don't have a classification system. Similar way, again, a digital plan of work or protocols. Again, these are all the scope documents which we are discussing today. So again, in operation phase, yes, if you don't have a classification, if you don't have a standard exchange methodology, it might not be that we should all use COBE. COBE is one exchange schema which was developed long back. But again, today every project is unique. Every construction project is unique in terms of the asset class which it belongs to. So I think their information exchange is very unique to that project. So there are a lot of tools and technologies which are available today where we can create a specific information exchange related to that use case. Today, if I am talking about a life cycle cost comparison for property 1 to property 2, so I should have the data which is related to life cycle cost management. I cannot take a standard COBE database or COBE Excel and expect that data to help me in life cycle cost comparison. Then I think execution plan is the where it all starts. So I think we have laid out a foundation now that why this scope document, and what are the use cases which we should talk about, how are the use cases, how it will impact. So all those things starts with an execution plan. So we should create this execution plan for a use case. So who will do it? So whether if it is a 3D model, who will do the 3D model, whether it is a architects, 3D model, MEP consultants or contractors, who will do it, how they will do it, that methodology has to be explained. So today if you type in BIM execution plan, you will get lot of standard templates and all those things. But today what we are trying to do here is break it down so that people can understand it in a common language. So basically, it concerns who will do it, how they will do it, what is the method, and when they will do it. So the timelines related to that, what they need from other consultants or other contractors, if there is any dependencies, and how they, and if they need it to do that. If an architect has to do a overall coordination of a project, So they have a dependency of MEP consultants giving their MEP models. So when it will be given, in what format it will be given, who will review and validate, quality assurance process, how much time and cost is required, and who will benefit from this use case. I think this is the major point which we have to address in an execution plan. And who develops a 3D model during design stage? Who architects, consultants, or a separate BIM consultants who has been appointed in that project during construction stage, whether contractors and subcontractors or a separate BIM consultants, and during handover stage, again same. So who is doing? So this is a very important aspect that an owner or a developer or a property owner should know, that when we talk about BIM, so this has to be very crystal clear to know that who is going to develop during design stage, who is the party who will be developing the 3D model, during construction stage, who is the party who will be developing 3D model. So the most idealistic scenario is that yes, architects and consultants do themselves, contractors and subcontractors do themselves, and then in handover stage again contractors and subcontractors do themselves. So there is no any separate requirement of having a BIM consultant on the project, provided you have all scoped that particular requirement of a BIM modeling or BIM clash detection coordination or whatever use case which you are looking at into the scope of the required stakeholder. Same question here. So who will review and approve the models? So this is also a gray area in all the projects. We start off with an RFP, people get onboarded. So then we have a question that who will approve this model? Who will review this model? Because there are multiple questions. Whether it is in-house team, whether it is project management consultants, whether there are separate BIM consultants who can manage the continuity of that project. So what happens is you might have a fantastic architectural team, I mean architects and the MEP consultant during design stage, but who will take handover of that model from the design stage and get it to construction stage. And then you might also have a contractor who is actually very having a team who can actually develop the model, all those things. But from there, from that stage to handover stage, how the model will be doing it. So I always there will be the conflict of interest, or the same team developing the model should not be auditing it, right? So there should be always a third party auditor, or it can be done by in-house team of the client or the project management consultants who will be actually overseeing this development of the model with respect to the use case. And then another very important aspect is the BIM models in construction stage. So what we have started seeing lately is, yes, so it is during the design and construction. So the model is done fantastically well. So it is well coordinated, all those things. But inside, so which is actually the highest time and money is spent during the construction stage. So the models get scrapped and models are not used for construction. So again, many of the people might say, why we are using BIM if you are not using it for construction stage? So at site, so how do we refer the latest BIM models? So again, there are specific technologies which has to be used to use BIM models at site. So how do we use models for site RFIs issues? So how do we ensure the models are correct as per the site? So most of the time, so there are two parallel activities. Construction is already started, but my BIM model does not reflect what is happening at site, or what is in the model is not matching at site. So always there is a gap between the site and the model. So then if the models are not being developed at construction stage, then going for 4D or 5D is pointless. So this is also one thing which we have seen is when we get an RFP or when we get a discussion where we are thinking that we will do 4D and 5D, but there is no actually the scope of developing model at construction stage. So we have not included that the model will be further developed. Again, this is a very specific case. It does not mean that every project is in the same case, but there are certain scenarios where people are asking for 4D and 5D, but there is no any contractual obligation that model has to be developed during construction stage. So this is also one thing which we should be very much aware, that if we are expecting that these models are getting used at construction stage, so it has to be explicitly mentioned in the scope that contractor has to develop it or any other third party has to develop it, so that we realize that benefit of having this model during construction stage. And then coming to the storing and interfacing of the project data. So what is this common data environment? So in the traditional practice, we are all well versed with emails, we are well versed with WeTransfer, OneDrive, Google Drive, but those are not the optimized way to store and share project information. So today, what happens is, we have all this BIM process mandated, or we have started using it, but most of the time we are again in the when it comes to communication aspect of it, we are communicating again in the traditional way. So we are communicating in emails, we are communicating in WeTransfer, Google Drives, OneDrive, these kind of things. So I think that is also one way we should change our I mean method how we communicate with each others. So yes, emails have to be used. I'm not saying that emails will completely disappear by using common data environment, but this has to be somewhere integrated, that whatever approvals or reviews are happening, it are means it is connected to the models, it is not disconnected to the models. Again, we are not going back to the PDFs, or we are not going back to a non-integrated way where we cannot trace back. So say some example, if somebody has approved a particular drawing and that approval is not there in our common data environment, and the version of drawing has been already replaced at construction site, but again the coordination is happening at a different version. So all these version related issues, and using a different drawing in site, and in design there is a different drawing, all this happens because we don't have a common data environment. So I think by having common data environment in a project, whether it is BIM or without BIM, 40-50% of the problem will be solved by just having a common data environment. So I think that is one point which you want to make. And buying license does not equal of effective usage. So I think just by having Econex license, or just by having some common platform to share this, does not mean that you are having a complete effective usage of that license, because still I am sure many people will agree on this. Still, by having all these technologies, we tend to bypass it and still start working on the traditional way, because it is a change. Yes, we agree that change is the normal, but again we don't want to change so fast, so quickly. There is always a resistance, there is always a gap which happens between for a new thing which we start implementing and the existing process. So I think people should be vocal to ask help. So we don't ask help enough to configure the CD, or use these available specifications which are there. ISO 19650, I think this is a wonderful standard which actually elaborates all the common use cases of BIM, and also the common data environment, how it has to be configured. So this is the framework, general framework of ISO 19650. So I'll not go in detail. There are many recorded webinars which we have conducted previously. Please feel free to go and check it out in our YouTube channel, where these processes are explained in detail. But more broadly, so these start with the initial stage, that is assessment and need. Then how to have an invitation to tender with respect to information requirement from the client. So again, so we have simplified this. What is that in the previous couple of slides back? So what I told is, we have simplified this into a plain language. So it is not talking only about the information exchange requirements. Sometimes people don't understand what is this information requirement. So we have to give examples, we have to give relevances for people to understand. So that we have done. So then tender response. So there is a pre-contract execution plan, then there is a post-contract execution plan. So then the mobilization happens. So then there is a delivery phase which starts, whether it is a designing phase. So how the scope has to be defined, setting up of this common data environment, so milestones, responsibility matrix, all those things are part of ISO 19650 part 2. And then part 3 is for more majorly for operational phase, how this information which is collaboratively produced during design and construction gets used during operation and maintenance stage, that we talk about. Then then I think, so going to the last part of it, so tools and technologies. So again, we cannot discard tools and technologies which are very essential or critical part of the project delivery. So here, I think one thing we have to understand is that not every tool can be used for every stage of the project. Like, I think this picture which I used is very self-explanatory, that I cannot use a screwdriver for application which is not intended. So I cannot use a screwdriver as a hammer, right? Although it sometimes it works, but I cannot use it. So there are 3D authoring tools which are like commonly available, maybe Revit, ArchiCAD, Plan 3D, Tekla, Bentley. So these are all 3D authoring tools where I create these models. And then there are common data environments like Econex, Construction Cloud, ProjectWise, BIM Track, Deluxe. So these are common data environment where I can host these models, where people can collaboratively produce information and exchange information. So then there are model management tools where we can do clash detection, coordination. So nowadays, so these model management are also getting integrated within the CDE platform. Then for 4D, 5D, so there are different tools for different things. So again, so we should also be aware that when I am asking for a 4D BIM, so whether a contractor or a consultant, so he has to use a specific tool for that. So he cannot just say that I'll do 4D BIM and tell that I have some model authoring tool licenses. So people also should know that there are different tools used for different things. So for some people it might be that yeah, this is understood why we have to specifically tell about it, but that is not the general understanding. So people are at different maturity level at different organizations. So we need to educate people to know that yes, for a digital twin use case, you have tools like Granular Manager or different other tools where you can actually use the model for facility management. So these are tools which are hardcore operation management, facility management tools, which have a capability to extract data from BIM models and use it for their day-to-day activities. And then also there is a general framework for tool selections or tech selections which we have to use. uh, Better to choose tools with a strong local support. I think this is very much relevant for operation stage and maintenance stage, but I think for design and construction there are there are many tools which are having local support. And pilots are the best way to determine the limitations, because from a salesperson from any organization, he can come and tell you that everything is possible, everything is doable in this particular tool. But without having a pilot, I think we should not make that any buying decision without again also trying 2 to 3 solutions, because pilots can be very limited for one tool. So we have to use it and then let know that these are the things which we can do and we cannot do. So that is one thing. And also in construction there are multiple tools. This is a very important aspect with respect to cost of a particular tool. So there are many technologies which are available which are unlimited user model. So better than going a pay per user license model. So I think for construction projects at an organization level or even for one single project, unlimited user model works fantastically rather than paying per user. Because the moment I have pay per user, I will start thinking that if I give the access to contractor, I have to pay more. If I have to use it for this consultant, I have to pay more. So always this mindset will start actually imposing or start making us think that okay, so this is always driven by cost and I cannot implement it. So always I think we should have a enterprise license of any of these tools which you are talking about, so where you have unlimited user model, which will actually help us to implement this technology at a wider level. So what we have realized is the more the people use, or the number of people use this technology, so it is better. So anything which actually restricts from people from using it, so always there is a blockage. So always opt for softwares which can use open formats like industrial foundation class or CSV exports. So I think the people who are very much specific on the tool, they can understand. So any tools and technology we use today, so I think they should have this IFC import and export option. And then data, so design and information should be your IP. So how uh, I think you should also spend time in understanding how that data can be archived and how it can be retrieved in later stage without depending on software OEM. So we are actually using all these latest technologies available. So we have seen in many projects in India and also across the globe that we cannot retrieve the data after certain amount of time, the data which is archived without depending on the software OEM. So because once we have reached a stage of operation and maintenance, there are multiple use cases depending upon the asset class. So if I talk about a railway station, so if I talk about a metro station, so there are endless possibilities. I can use it for safety, I can use it for rainwater simulation, I can use it for any situation where there is a threat and I want to actually do a mock drill using the model. So these are all intellectual property which is actually owned by a particular developer or owner of that property. I think we should also start thinking about that use case where people can actually retrieve the data without depending on any third party software or OEMs. So what are the best practices? So factoring time for model development, whether it is done by consultants or by architects or contractors, please factor in that time for model development and redevelopment whenever there is a RFI or whenever there is a design change or anything. So don't mention LODs. That is what we tell. Again, we use it for because the majority has become like that, but I think we should stop using it and describe it more. It what is that information I need at tender stage, what is that information which I need at maybe at a schematic level stage or design stage. So we already have that stages in projects, so design, construction stage, schematic, detailed design. So we should augment this word with traditional words which are used it, and explain in more detail what is that information required at that stage rather than just going to jargons. So organization level and project level CD configuration, I think by this time people have understood what is CD and what is the importance of that. So if you guys want more to know more about it, I think we have done a specific webinar only on CD. So how to configure it at a process level, at a project level, without specifying any specific technology. So vendor neutral approach has been taken there, and then using lidar survey to calibrate the model and site. So I think there is always a catch up between construction site and the model. So you using drone or using laser, terrestrial laser scanning to bring back the site data to the model or model data to the site. So I think that is the thing which is picking up here in India now, so that where people start implementing these models actually on site, how to bring these models actually on site. So those are the technologies which we should be using. And then establishing review and approval mechanism, again this becomes a part of CD. And then using schemas which are actually understandable by everyone. So again, not using jargons or not using international schemas which has been developed in some other country which does not have any relevance here for a particular project, but we use it again in our standard scope of documents and contractual documents. And The last point is asking for an help. So if you don't know, so definitely ask for the help. So there are many specific industry bodies and also consulting firms who are specialized in helping digitalization during construction, design, and operation stages. I think we should start asking for help rather than we assuming that we know everything. So these are the information management methodologies which are using uh, for digital project management during briefing stage, design and construction stage, operation stage. So these are all the things which we are doing. I think again the detailed webinar on DPM is published. But why I'm showing this picture is that, so yes, these things can be streamlined by having a digital project management scope in the project at an organization level or at a project level. We can have this scope. So to summarize this webinar today, so I think scope is one thing which is actually has to be done right, and then limitation in scope or in any unclear scope actually can derail the project with respect to budget, goals, and timelines. And then BIM is not just a tool; it is an information repository which all stakeholders can rely upon. Uh, uh, so that's why if getting it right can go exponentially correct. I mean, people can, many stakeholders can get benefited by it, but if it is goes wrong, so it is the same way. So there might people might go exponentially wrong on that. So information management experts are required. So in any project, in capital projects, so there is a scope for information management. So I think that is becoming a part of all the major projects now, that there is a information management layer either done from a project management company or from a separate entity, where which can actually take lead role in assuring that all this information created is actually getting benefited for your organization or for the project needs. So now I'll open this discussion for Q&A, and please let us know if there is any questions. So there are some questions, so I'll take up these questions one by one. So the scope include, so the one question which we have got is that uh, how do we know that what is missing? So the if a particular people think that if the everything is mentioned in the scope, how do we know? So I think for that we should talk about, and we could there are two approaches. One is it can be reviewed, the scope can be reviewed by just an independent party to make sure that project goals with respect to BIM implementation are mentioned within the scope or no. Or it can be done within your team. You know what is the end output. So in that end output, if that scope is tailored correctly, I think these two things will be connected. So how can control this unwanted information in the scope of BIM? So I think unwanted information is also again I think again it draw back to the same point that we should know what is the end goal. So what is the end goal of this project and what is the use case of that particular project? So based on that, I think we should eliminate all these unwanted jargons and unwanted scope creeps which happens, because anything which I add unknowingly, so that will lead to scope creep. So scope creep, to avoid that, I think we should stick to the use cases which we have defined in the project. Yeah. So I think that there are related to the standard scope documents. Yes. So ISO 19650 is one scope standard which is has been released now. So which can be used for any type of asset. Again, so this is a standard guidelines, but again, it has to be specifically tailored for particular project. So I think that there is also one question related to this one project, the residential project, and how the project has to be implemented on BIM. I think we should ask the question in a reverse manner, that what is that we are expecting from BIM. So keeping that in mind, we should set up the required data drops which has to happen from architects and from other stakeholders. So that's all. I think thank you everyone for joining this session. Um, we can, if there is any further comments or anything which is required in more specific to your company or to your processes, we can answer those in a specific meetings, and we can connect and detail the scope or detail the requirements. So thank you very much, everyone.